So we're back. The senior housing coach, my man, Allan Erselius. Hello, sir. We're back.
Hello, Louis. Good to see you.
We're back, and we're back here talking about food, right? Food. Food being one of the three pillars, one of the three legs that you're always talking about. You know, it's the ED, and the culture, the food service, and the activities. Talking about the food. So, my biggest question, and I think it's one that everybody wants to know if they're new to this business. The first thing is, because we're thinking from an owner's perspective, what should we be spending? How much does it actually cost?
Sure. If you think about it, if you go to Denny's, everything is between $6 and $10.
Right.
The cost of an egg, piece of toast, hash browns, bacon, coffee is between $1.15 to $1.35 their cost. It doesn't matter if it's scrambled eggs, doesn't matter if it's Belgian waffles, it's $1.15 to $1.35 wholesale.
Yeah.
Buying wholesale flour, wholesale eggs, wholesale milk. Okay, so on a budget, this is going to blow you away, $6 per person per day. So in 365 days, I can feed one person for $2,000.
That just boggles my mind.
But you're doing it wholesale for 60 to 100 people at a time. Now, if I had to make a tray of lasagna and throw away 50% of it, then my food costs are going to go up, skyrocket. So it's a matter of managing your money, spending it wisely, and making sure that the allocation is correct. So the number that you ought to be looking at is if you see a food cost, just divide it by 2, and that's how many people it should be serving. If somebody says there's $80,000 in food costs, that's 40 people. So if it's not the residents, it's residents plus employees.
Yeah.
Oh, you do not want to be feeding employees at $2,000. You can give them $1 an hour increase in their raise to be even rather than feeding them every day.
Well, Allan, I'm okay. So let me ask you this question then. That $2 per meal per person that's living in the home.
Yeah.
Mama Kim, she is not your average consumer of food.
Right.
She's gourmet. She's luxury.
Oh.
What type of meal can we provide? And if you're say at a service level that is class A plus, how much more is being allocated? Because I think that'll help people understand both what you're talking about and then any difference. Like if we have to go all organic, whatever, like how much of a delta is there?
Yeah. If you hired a company to come in and do food service for you, they're going to charge you $20 per person per day, not 6, 20 plus labor. Wow. So if you have a A-plus facility with china and tablecloths and beautiful desserts, it's about $20 to $25 per person per day.
Okay.
So instead of your cost being $600 per month, wait a minute, let me do the math. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
$200 a month for 30 days for one person. It could be closer to, a couple, $3,000, $4,000 if you're going to spend money like crazy.
Right.
So you really want to make sure that it's not in the $1,000 a month per person. It's really closer to about $200-$300 would be about right. $600 is really, really high. So the expensive stuff is the store-bought desserts, store-bought things that you can make yourself. I can make a loaf of bread for 35 cents versus, buying it for $1.15. So if people can make their own rolls, make their own muffins, make their own desserts, make their own sheet cake, they're going to save a lot of money.
Well, and this is also where someone with chef skills differs, right? Like you can get someone to come in if they know how to butcher a piece of meat or an animal,
cool.
If they've got those sort of skills, they can conserve because they're making up for the price difference because of the labor and the skill, right? And I've got a bunch of friends in the food business, one that's a chef, and he tells me how he's such like just the master of like selling pieces like this fried chicken in a way where he just knows how to cut it up, where he maximizes the pieces. And he's like, I'm getting $12 for the same serving that somebody else is getting $8. And it's like those sort of things, I think, you can make them work for you, right?
Right. So on the budgeting is one side, but
yeah,
nutrition for seniors is the other. They don't need a whole lot of protein.
Uh-huh.
They need fresh fruits and vegetables and maybe 4 to 6 ounces a day of protein.
Okay.
So a small chicken breast at lunchtime would suffice.
Yeah.
They need, and because their body doesn't metabolize as yours and mine does,
right,
we need to have roughage in there to slow down the process.
Right.
So the balance of good nutritious food with fruits and vegetables being as the core is really the health for seniors. And that's where, if a chef is used to providing meat and potatoes for 40-year-olds, that's not going to work for 80-year-olds. They need the vitamins from fruits and vegetables. And the sugar content, the salt content's got to be closely regulated, that they don't go high blood pressure or they're mildly diabetic going into diabetes. The skilled chef is saying, okay, how do I portion control this down? Not for cost, but that these folks will eat it and enjoy it and it'll be healthy. So usually if you find a hotel chef, they pretty much know those skills. A fine dining chef, no, they're really not gonna be your best customer here. So the adjustment to taste, the amount of salt that we use is very low, and we don't salt a lot of things because of the blood pressure for these seniors. We say, we want to keep you alive to 100 and beyond. And I've had rebellions where they want 3 items a week deep fried. And I said, no, I'm not going to kill you. You go to Long John Silver's and get deep fried catfish every day if you want, but I'm not going to kill you. I'll give you fried chicken once a week on Sunday. The rest of the time, it's fresh fruits, vegetables, chicken, fish, pork, great. But carbs, we try to keep them down to a minimum. Because on carbs, they will load up on desserts, ice cream, cake. They're getting tons of sugar and carbs just on dessert. So that's why the soup is so important for seniors. If you walked into a kitchen that you're looking at buying and you talk to the chef and say, tell me about your soup, and he goes, I open up this number 9 can. I'm just shoot the guy. It's like, really? Make homemade soup for these folks, please.
Well, and even from just purely a cost standpoint, right?
Absolutely.
Soup is like the kitchen and chef's like budgetary love, right? Like,
absolutely,
it's where if you've got some creativity and some ability, all those scraps, all those end pieces that don't fit the right cut,
leftover broccoli, everything goes in
exactly. Exactly. I once heard someone say that when you go to fine dining and you get this tiny micro perfectly placed food, you're not actually paying for what's on the plate. You're paying for everything that's in the trash can, right? Because they just took a head of broccoli so you could get that perfect speck of it, right?
And so our seniors, again, this generation, they eat everything on their plate. So whatever you put in front of them, they will down it whether they want to or not. So we really try to be careful on portion control and make sure that it's fair for them. And again, we really care for these guys, but soup says home to so many people. Homemade soup, homemade bread, that tells me that's like my mom making it. I'm sure your mom had specialty things she made for you that as soon as you smell it, you go, oh yeah, home.
Well, so that's what I was going to ask you there was about this, because you said fried chicken once a week. Where's the balance between the health and providing the emotional things from the food standpoint that keep them, the comfort food that'll keep a senior happy?
Yeah, a lot of times, even when we're touring somebody, we say, what does your mom like to eat? And she may say, you know what? She loves meatloaf. Really? She loves liver. We make those notes so the chef knows who his audience, what they like to eat, and what's their favorite. And I probably would never eat liver, but in the older generation, they like liver because it's supposed to be good for them. I will never know. So the balance is, let's check the salt content, sugar content, fiber content of our weekly menu. If half of that is frozen vegetables, that's really not going to get much nutrition to these people.
Mm-hmm.
So I will go through the menu and say, tell me which one's fresh, tell me which one's frozen on fruits and vegetables. And yes, there's certain times of year you can't get certain veggies. I understand that.
Do you do you ever work with a nutritionist in the menu plan? And yeah,
absolutely. We usually try to get them to review the menu rather than generate the menu. So on a monthly basis, a lot of the food service companies have a nutritionist on hand that you can submit your menu to, and they will give you their expertise, and they're very critical. So don't, there's a lot of crying going on.
Yeah,
we really want to give it to a nutritionist, and she'll say, you know what, you've got way too much salt here, and are you preparing it with butter, margarine, or Euro butter, which actually is probably the best for them and the least amount of cost.
Yeah.
So the menu is a major component, but the quality of the food is the second side. And then on your food, how much is being wasted, and what are you going to do with the leftovers? So you want to make sure food service standards are taken correctly, how they store it in the freezer or refrigerator. Any leftovers have to have the tag, date, marked, initialed, and everything's got to be in its place.
Yeah.
So just like the maintenance guy, the chef, if it's a sloppy kitchen, probably is not the right person in there.
Yeah.
They need to be orderly, and everything's got to be in its place.
Well, just to go back to budgeting very briefly. So for most folks, if they're not sure, this is something that I learned from Allan, and then I verified it. When it comes to buying your food wholesale, that the major food distributors actually have a separate division that is healthcare, senior housing, where the rates that you pay, they're buying certain things at such scale that you are going to be buying it even cheaper than some of the restaurants may buy. So understand that the pricing that Allan's talking about, we aren't talking about buying this off the back of like the day old bread truck, right? Like this is it's direct from the source, right?
Right. And on meats, you go to the supermarket, you buy prime cut meat, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In wholesale, you buy beef, or you buy pork, or you buy a pork shoulder. There's no grading on most of the meats that you get. So your chef has to know what they're looking at when they receive the goods and what they're purchasing up front.
Yeah.
So, you really need a jack of all trades as your senior housing chef.
Yeah.
Somebody that can get in there and prepare the meals, somebody can budget the meals, and somebody that can purchase for the meals.
Well, and when you get those tougher cuts of meat, and I don't know how much supplies senior housing. I just love cooking food. Braising, long-term braising, sous vide, smoking, like any that's a slow cook in a long time, you can find ways to impart taste to it without, and working with those sort of rougher cuts of meat, right? And still providing that protein.
Yeah, an Alto Sham, something that's a slow cooker overnight was wonderful. Yeah. And again, think of an 85-year-old. They're not going to be, most of them have dentures. So you've got to make sure the meat is edible. They can't be yanking on a piece of meat and trying to cut it. It frustrates them. So you've got to put yourself in their shoes.
No flank steak for grandma. No.
Nope.
So in terms of food, do you have any sort of ninja tricks that you can think of that would help a chef or an owner?
Okay. So a lot of owners don't have food service background. I was a busboy when I was 16, 17, and I know I don't want to work in food service. Breakfast costs are $1.15 to $1.30, all in per person. So if you have 50 people, that means for $65, you should be able to make breakfast. At lunchtime, you may spend $2.50 if that's the big meal. So for $150, you should be able to feed 60 people. So if you're interviewing a chef and say, I've got 60 people to feed, how much tell me how to spend $150?
Yeah.
So they'll say, I buy 50 potatoes and that's going to cost X. I buy this much broccoli, it's going to cost me X. This is what I'm going to cut in my main meat. This is what it's going to cost. And this is what I'm going to do for dessert. So if a chef can cost out each meal by 60, 70 bucks, $200, $150 for dinner, that's what you want. When they say, now I'm going to give them a bag of Fritos and a half a sandwich and a cup of tomato soup, you got the wrong person at the controls.
Yeah.
So food, we want to make sure that they enjoy it. It reminds them of home.
Yeah.
And that they love it. And most of these women are very, very, very gracious. And they understand that we can't load it up with lard or butter and salt like that they did. And they're very, very gracious. I must say that most of these ladies are great. And again, on the portion controls, we've seen military guys put ketchup on everything. Okay, that's fine. If he wants to do that, just don't yell at him, but that's what he likes. Other guys like to put gravy, brown gravy on everything. Fish, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's their home, and you got to be a little bit flexible. But at the same time, food is a major, major component in a successful senior housing operation.
Well, I don't have an operational one. I have a food one and I may have a bunch of Southern grandmas come and find me and hurt me. But when it comes to biscuits, and I know this because we spent a year, we were going to open a biscuit-oriented business, and I traveled all over the U.S. finding the best recipes. And the secret, in my opinion, soft biscuits, really good. And listen, you can make biscuits for nothing. So there should be no excuse. If you want to give a home experience, whether it's for breakfast or for dinner,
absolutely,
biscuits are fantastic. And the secret is you got to take frozen butter, put it in a food processor so it gets all ground up. So it's little bits. That butter has to go into the flour mixture that you make. Then you portion out the biscuits and then you put those in the freezer, then directly cook the biscuit from the freezer, and you will have a satisfied biscuit eater every single time. And the key is when you have the little frozen bits, don't put your hands in there because the warmth of your hands will liquefy that butter. And the idea is as it's cooking, the butter will come out evenly across the entire piece of bread. So
very good. And my little clue is most seniors don't know sugar-free chocolate pudding from sugared chocolate pudding.
Okay.
And we do blind taste tests and say, okay, tell me which one of these three is sugar-free chocolate pudding or sugar-free chocolate cake. And they can't tell the difference. And I said, look, for the calories and the sugar content, if there's a difference, if there's a bitter taste, don't eat it.
Yeah.
But if you can't tell the difference, we're going to make sure that you have sugar-free, pudding or chocolate cake for your best benefit.
I will just add to that. Now I feel like we go back and forth forever about food. Sugar-free, and I know this from personal experience because I often go ketogenic with my diet. Among the artificial sweeteners, they're all over the place. Splenda, it's the mix of two, gives you high level sweetness. Stevia being the natural one, that tends to be super, super sweet. And personally, with the senior citizens in my life, I have found that they think it's too sweet. And I think the best,
they call it saccharine sweet.
Yes. And I think the best sugar alternative that is low, it's no calorie, and it's also does not trigger the glycemic, your blood sugar response, is monk fruit powder. It is a little more expensive, but if you use it 1-to-1 with sugar, you're talking about such an inconsequential amount of money that you can provide that sweetness that's more like sugar and reduce the insulin response along with the calories.
Right. And fresh fruit versus canned fruit. Got to do fresh fruit.
Awesome. All right. You